The rookies put 3 young officers in uniform every week, and 2 of them are now gone. One lieutenant carried a secret the badge never showed. One actor was arrested while still playing a cop. By the end of this video, you will know every name. Number 1 is the face most people picture first when this show comes up, and she was the only woman who carried the whole thing on her back. Kate Jackson played Jill Danko, the nurse married into a world of sirens and gunfire, and she gave the show its heartbeat. While the men chased suspects through the night, Jill was the person the danger came home to, calm and clear-eyed, the steady center who made you believe these officers had something worth surviving for. She was the only woman in the main cast, and rather than play decoration, she played the moral weather of the show, the face that registered every risk her husband took the moment he walked back through the door. Jackson was 23 when the show premiered in 1972 and 27 when it ended. She had grown up comfortable in Birmingham, Alabama, the daughter of a building supply executive, and she drifted through the University of Mississippi and Birmingham Southern before landing at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York. To pay her way in those early days, she worked as a page and tour guide at Rockefeller Center, walking strangers through NBC studios she would soon be working inside. A gothic soap opera called Dark Shadows gave her a first on-screen role. The rookies made her a name. What came next made her a fight. She was the first actress cast on Charlie's Angels, and the part of Hollywood lore people forget is that she invented the title. The original concept was a sleazy thing called the Alley Cats, full of whips and chains, and Jackson refused it, pitched the word angels, and then chose to play Sabrina, the smart detective, instead of the glamour one. Then, in 1979, she was offered the lead in Kramer vs. Kramer, the role of a lifetime. Aaron Spelling would not move the Angels' shooting schedule to let her take it. The part went to Meryl Streep, who won an Academy Award for it. Before that season was even over, Spelling fired Jackson publicly, saying she had been let go for the good of the show. She walked away from a fortune and an Oscar-caliber role in the same brutal year, replaced on Angels by Shelley Hack. Her real life carried weight the cameras never asked her to play. She survived breast cancer twice, first diagnosed in January 1987 while she was starring on Scarecrow and Mrs. King, where she quietly went in for treatment under a false name and kept working. A recurrence came in 1989. Then, in 1995, she underwent open-heart surgery to repair a hole in her heart she had carried since birth, a defect doctors only found that year. Married 3 times and divorced 3 times, she adopted a son, Charles, in 1995 and built a life away from the noise. As of April 2026, Kate Jackson is 77 years old, living on a farm in Virginia with horses and chickens. And in early April, she walked back onto a stage at a 50th anniversary reunion and said she is ready to act again after roughly 20 years away. The world remembers her as a pinup from a Jiggle TV hit. The truth is, she was the most creatively stubborn person on her own show, the woman who named it and shaped it, and she spent decades fighting the very image that made her famous. The second name belongs to the man who ran the squad room, and he is the reason the whole premise of this list cuts deeper than fans ever realized. Gerald S. O'Loughlin played Lieutenant Ed Riker, the gruff veteran who guided 3 untested kids with patience and a tired kind of wisdom. Every squad room needs a man like that, the one who has seen it all and still shows up, and Riker was the show's conscience as much as its commander. He felt completely real in that uniform, and there was a reason. Before he was an actor, O'Loughlin was a United States Marine lieutenant in World War II, with service that sources tie to the occupation of Japan and a later recall during Korea. He once said he enjoyed playing a lieutenant on television because he had been one for real. The man dispensing fatherly police advice every week had survived a war, trained as a mechanical engineer, and then studied acting on the GI Bill under Sanford Meisner and Lee Strasberg, 2 of the most demanding teachers the American theater ever produced. He won an Obie on the New York stage and played Chesak in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest on Broadway opposite Kirk Douglas. He turned down the captain's role on The Love Boat because he felt insulted, snapping that he played police lieutenants and did not play captains on an excursion cruiser, a decision he later admitted may have cost him a couple of $1 million when that show ran for a decade. Here is the part most people watching The Rookies never knew. Years before he put on Riker's badge, O'Loughlin stepped inside the most famous murder case in American history. In the 1967 film In Cold Blood, the screen version of Truman Capote's account of the real Clutter family killings in Kansas, he played Harold Nye, one of the actual Kansas state investigators who worked that case. The man who played make-believe authority on Tuesday nights had already portrayed a real detective hunting the real men who murdered a family of 4 in their farmhouse. His marriage carried its own quiet story. He wed casting director Merrill Abels in 1966, and though a divorce was filed, the bond effectively held until she died of cancer in 2007. His son Christopher grew up to fence for the United States at the 1992 Olympics. O'Loughlin died on July 31, 2015, at a hospital in Los Angeles of natural causes, at the age of 93, and his son confirmed it. The actor everyone filed away as just the boss in the squad room had lived more genuine history than any script he was ever handed. A quick warning before the next name, because the cleanest, most all-American face on this entire list hid the most on-the-nose secret of anyone here. A real run-in with the law for the man hired to enforce it on screen. Number 3 came in as the new kid, and the irony of his real life is almost too perfect. Bruce Fairbairn played Officer Chris Owens, the fresh rookie written into seasons 3 and 4 to fill the gap when one of the originals walked away. Rather than recast an old part and hope nobody noticed, the producers built a brand new officer just for him, a clean slate of a character, and Fairbairn stepped into an established hit at 27 with everything to prove. He looked the part completely, the all-American young cop, the kind of face networks love to put in a patrol car. He had been living hand-to-mouth in New York, studying acting while working at a restaurant, and just before filming an auto accident badly injured his right hand, with medical professionals questioning whether he could even finish the job he had finally landed. He pushed through the pain and stayed in uniform for 2 full seasons. Then comes the collision. On September 9, 1975, while he was still on the air every week playing a clean-cut police officer, Bruce Fairbairn was arrested for drunk driving in Los Angeles. The man wearing the badge on screen was booked by real police off it. He pleaded no contest and paid a fine, and the man who patrolled prime time on Tuesdays had a record of his own. After the show, he kept working steadily for decades, recurring as Sheldon Gans on L.A. Law and as Ray Geary on Knots Landing, turning up on Knight Rider, Remington Steele, Baywatch, and a dozen other series all the way through the year 2000. His second marriage, to a talent manager named Joy Keller, lasted more than 30 years, until her death in 2010. Here is the fact that surprises almost everyone, because his name carries confusion with a famous record producer who shares it. Bruce Fairbairn, the actor, the one who wore Officer Chris Owens' badge, is still alive. As of 2026, he is 79 years old. The officer who got arrested while playing a cop outlived the show, the decade, and most of the people who ever watched him in uniform. The fourth name walked away from the show on purpose at the height of it, and the reason traces back to a sport, not a stage. Michael Ontkean played Officer Willie Gillis, the sensitive college graduate of the trio, the young heartthrob whose face sold the show to a generation. What viewers did not know was that Ontkean had been a genuine athlete before he ever read a script. Born in Vancouver to an actress mother and a boxer father, he had performed on Canadian television as a child, then earned a hockey scholarship to the University of New Hampshire, where he scored 63 goals and 111 points across 3 varsity seasons. He was a real Division I player, not a dabbler. Acting was the family business, but the ice was entirely his own. He left the Rookies after 2 seasons in 1974, openly unhappy with the writing and the storylines, treating the show as a stepping stone rather than a home, and the producers brought in Bruce Fairbairn to fill the gap. The gamble paid off in a way few television exits ever do. In 1977, he starred opposite Paul Newman in Slapshot, one of the most quoted sports movies ever made, playing Ned Braden, a principled hockey player who refuses to brawl for the crowd. And because Ontkean had actually skated at the college level, he did his own skating and his own shooting on the ice. The role nobody else could have faked was the role he was born to play, His real youth folded straight into the part. He also took on Making Love in 1982, a daring studio film about a married man coming out, a part several bigger names had turned down. Then, in 1990, David Lynch cast him as Sheriff Harry S. Truman in Twin Peaks, the calm, decent lawman at the center of one of the strangest shows ever made. And a new generation knew him for that alone. Ontkean married twice and raised 2 daughters. His second wife, Susan Sennett, died in 2020, and he has lived quietly as a widower in Kauai, Hawaii, retired from acting since around 2011 after a final small role in The Descendants. When the Twin Peaks revival came in 2017, he did not return, and the show simply wrote around the sheriff's absence. As of April 2026, he turned 80 years old in January, the day marked by tributes from fans who never forgot him behind that desk. The boy next door rookie cop was secretly the real thing, an athlete playing athletes. And the authenticity people loved on screen was the one part of him no makeup department ever created. If a cast member walking away at his peak is the kind of story you want more of, take a second to subscribe, because the rest of this list does not get lighter from here. Number 5 is the rookie everyone pictures in uniform first, the steady one, and his ending is the quietest heartbreak on this list. Sam Melville played Officer Mike Danko, the idealistic former Marine, the married man of the group, the one whose home life with Nurse Jill was the show's emotional center. He appeared in all 93 episodes, the most reliable presence the series had. The anchor the younger officers swirled around. Playing a former Marine in 1972, at the height of national division over Vietnam, was no small thing, and Melville carried it with a kind of weary decency that made Danko feel older than his years. Born in Fillmore, Utah in 1936, he came up through film before television found him, playing Morgan Earp in Hour of the Gun, robbing a bank opposite Steve McQueen in The Thomas Crown Affair, and later riding the surf in Big Wednesday. After the rookies, he kept working, turning up on The Dukes of Hazzard and Dallas, and even reuniting with Kate Jackson on Scarecrow and Mrs. King in the mid-80s, where he played her ex-husband. Here is the thing almost nobody knew about the square-jawed cop. Off-camera, Sam Melville was a working rock and roll musician. He played bass in a local band called Alias, gigging at clubs alongside his second wife, Annie. And by every account, the music gave him more satisfaction than the acting ever did. The small clubs feeling more honest than any soundstage. The tough Marine on television went home and plugged in an amplifier. On March 9, 1989, he collapsed at his home in the Hollywood Hills and died of massive heart failure. He was 52 years old. A family spokeswoman said that only months earlier, doctors had told him he had the heart of a 23-year-old, which makes the suddenness of it almost unbearable. He left no children, survived by Annie, his parents, and 2 sisters, and he was laid to rest at Forest Lawn in the Hollywood Hills. The man who spent 4 years playing the dependable rookie who always made it home turned out to be a club musician at heart, and his own heart gave out decades too soon, with no warning and no script. The 6th name is the one the audience saw on screen and never imagined what he would become behind the camera. Georg Stanford Brown played Officer Terry Webster, the street-smart black officer recruited through a minority program, a fully drawn character at a time when network television rarely allowed one. Webster was written to bridge the gap between the police and the neighborhoods they patrolled, and Brown gave him intelligence, and pride, and a refusal to be anyone's token, which made him quietly revolutionary on a 1972 cop show. Born in Havana, Cuba, to Jamaican immigrant parents and raised in Harlem from the age of 7, he formed a teenage singing group, dropped out of high school, and headed for Los Angeles, where he worked as a school janitor to pay for acting classes. He clawed his way into film, appearing in The Comedians and Bullet, before the show made him a star. What happened on set during his run was years ahead of its time. When his real-life wife guest-starred opposite him, the two shared one of the earliest interracial kisses on American television, and Brown said the network censors sent a memo ordering the kiss cut, declaring interracial romance still taboo. The production refused and aired it anyway. He also spoke of constant reminders in the culture around him that he was a black man married to a white woman. Then Brown did something almost no actor of his moment managed. He moved behind the camera and became one of the most accomplished black directors in television history. He had already directed episodes of The Rookies itself, and he went on to direct Hill Street Blues, Starsky and Hutch, Dynasty, Miami Vice, and Cagney and Lacey, winning a directing Emmy in 1986 and earning 2 more directing nominations. He also acted as Tom Harvey in Roots and its sequel, among the most watched programs ever made, and co-starred with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor in Stir Crazy. As of April 2026, Georg Stanford Brown is 82 years old and lives privately, far from the spotlight. The young man audiences knew as a rookie learning the ropes spent the back half of his career teaching the whole industry how a scene should be shot. That kiss between Georg Stanford Brown and his co-star was not a stunt, and the woman on the other side of it is number 7, with a real-life story that makes the censorship even more absurd. Tyne Daly guest-starred on The Rookies across roughly 4 episodes between 1973 and 1976, and what made her appearances electric was no secret to anyone who knew the cast. She was married to Georg Stanford Brown in real life. They had wed in 1966, a full year before the Supreme Court struck down laws banning interracial marriage in the Loving v. Virginia decision, which means the censors objecting to their on-screen kiss were objecting to a woman kissing her actual husband. Daly was already from acting royalty, the daughter of actor James Daly and the sister of actor Tim Daly, trained at the American Musical and Dramatic Academy, holding an equity card by the time she was 15. She went on to a career that dwarfs almost everyone on this list. She won 6 Emmy Awards, 4 of them for playing Detective Mary Beth Lacey on Cagney and Lacey, the very kind of working cop role the Rookies trafficked in every week, then 2 more for Christy and Judging Amy. She added a Tony Award for the musical Gypsy in 1990, a Hollywood Walk of Fame star, and a place in the American Theater Hall of Fame. She and Brown raised 3 daughters, Elizabeth, Catherine, and Alexandra, and divorced in 1990 after 24 years together. A fake page once even circulated a false report of her death, which she has thoroughly outlived. As of April 2026, Tyne Daly is 80 years old and still working on stage, set to star as the Widow Lundy in Brigadoon at the Pasadena Playhouse that very spring. If you have a memory of watching The Rookies as a kid, drop it in the comments and tell us which officer you remember best, because the next generation finding this show deserves to hear it from the people who were there. The guest star. The network tried to censor, outlasted the controversy, the marriage, and the show itself. And she did it holding more trophies than the entire main cast combined. The 8th and final name is one almost no fan of this show has ever heard, and that is exactly why she belongs here. Before Kate Jackson ever put on a nurse's uniform, another actress played Jill Danko, and her story is the kind of cruel footnote that television history is full of. Jennifer Billingsley originated the role in the 1972 television movie that served as the pilot for The Rookies, the very first version of Jill that ever reached an audience, broadcast before the series existed and before anyone knew the show would become a 4-year hit. When the show was picked up, the part was reconceived as a nurse and recast with Kate Jackson, and Billingsley was quietly written out of the story that would run for 4 years and make her replacement a household name. She was no stranger to the screen. The daughter of an Army colonel, raised on military bases and born in Honolulu, she had made her film debut opposite James Caan and Olivia de Havilland in the thriller Lady in a Cage in 1964, appeared with Joe Namath and Anne Margaret in C.C. and Company, rode through White Lightning with Burt Reynolds, and spent years as Polly Prentice on General Hospital. Yet, the one role that could have changed her life slipped to someone else before the cameras ever rolled on the series, and the recast became one of the defining stars of 70s television while Billingsley faded back into supporting work and the occasional drive-in film. She never headlined a series of her own. She is believed to be living, in her mid-80s, long retired and entirely out of public view. Jennifer Billingsley was the first Jill Danko, and she was gone from the part before the country ever met the show, a near miss with fame that history almost completely forgot. 2 of these 8 are gone, both men who wore the badge. The rest are scattered across farms, islands, and stages, still carrying a uniform that was only ever pretend.